everybody. Welcome to MOONCAST. Apologies that I forgot to put up the music today in the waiting video. So my bad. I'm so sorry. Forgot about that. How are you? Welcome to MOONCAST. I am Luna, a Vietnamese communist comrade, born and living in Vietnam, and I do MOONCAST every week. I mostly talk about Vietnam and all the topics that related to Vietnam. Today we will talk about how we defend Marxism, Leninism in this new era, because that reactionaries, they continuously come up with a bunch of lies and false information about Marxism, Leninism, and today I will show you how we defend it, and maybe it would also give you some ideas on how to defend Marxism, Leninism in your society. Maybe it's a be interesting kind of topic, and I think it is very necessary because we officially recognize all the attacks against Marxism, Leninism, and we do address them a lot and even tell us how to defend and how to fight against those false information. Gosh. Thanks, EJ. This is it.
You have to have your defensive equipment.
Exactly, like ka-ting, the ninja kind of sword sound effect, like ching, ching, something like this.
Now you need to do an anime defense yell, like yeah,
yeah.
There you go. New meme format.
Oh my gosh! But yeah, this is a gift from.
Our comrades got this for us in China.
Yeah, our comrades visited China and got this as a gift for us. It's amazing. It's really great. It's like, stuff, sticker and hammer.
All right, back to work.
Back to work. Dang it. Yeah, you know what? We have a Nicaragua comrade. We have a New Zealand comrade, Pennsylvania comrade. That is amazing.
That's an international.
Yeah.
Right there. Why did our internet just drop? That's odd.
That's odd.
You're potatoing, I think, Glenn.
Oh no. Because I'm too cool for the internet? Right?
I guess so. I guess we'll let it ride for a second.
Mm-hmm.
All right, move forward.
Move forward. I'm checking the chat right now. My brain is so dead. I'm sorry the stream is 20 minutes late today because I overslept. Dang. Ray Struggle is asking, radical potato or sweet potato? I guess sweet potato since we are in Vietnam.
Luna definitely prefers sweet potato.
Definitely. And here's the thing too. It's so funny, like when you talk about potato, what like the what do you call it? The funnel potato there is just the potato that you eat like French fries or something like that. But the default potato is the French fry potato. But in Vietnam, the default potato is sweet potato. Huh?
It's not the French fried potato.
So what do you call that? Smashed potato?
What are you talking about?
The kind of potato that you use to cook French fries and make smashed potato?
It's just a potato.
Because in Vietnam, the sweet potato is the default.
All right, you're going to have to back up and explain what you're trying to talk about. Okay. What? Are you saying that... are you saying that when you go get a burger, it comes with sweet potato? No. That's not what you mean, right? What are you talking about? What are you trying to say?
I was just trying to... Gosh, because looking at it from a Vietnamese perspective, the default potato that we call potato in Vietnam is your sweet potato. That is why I'm saying
but you said our default potato is French fried potatoes.
No, your default potato is a kind of potato that makes French fries.
Right,
it's not the same as potato.
Here's a better way to explain it. I'm sorry. In my opinion, just say when you say the word potato, it means sweet potato. And then when you talk about what we call potato, you use the word Western potato.
Exactly. So we call sweet potato potato. And we call your potato the Western potato.
There you go. I don't know why you brought French fries. I feel a little offended.
Offended because...
That was a microaggression against Americans.
Yeah, right. Sorry. Is that anti-white racism we're talking about here?
Well, just American. I think all Americans love French fries. Maybe I'm wrong.
What about yams? I think yams is the same thing. Yam is like...
different from a sweet potato. I've looked into this, I think. Although
yam is yellow, right?
Well, in the South, we call them all the same thing.
Yeah. In Vietnam, we call them all the same thing. We have a yellow potato. We have purple potato. We have a white potato. Sweet potato, by the way.
Super chat!
Ayu, wait. Just hi. Hi. Oh, there's a Mexico City. Conrad. Hi.
Oh.
Hi. We're fighting. Yukon Gold? Let me Google that. Yukon Gold.
It's kind of a potato.
Kind of potato.
If you Google it, you're just going to see pictures of potatoes.
Yukon Gold.
It's just a kind of potato.
I think we have it in Vietnam. Oh, it's a potato. Boring.
I warned you.
You warned me. Okay. That's a potato. Okay.
Luna, don't start Googling different kinds of potatoes. Let's move forward.
No, we can't move forward, potatoes. Potatoes are too important for us to move forward.
You can't get stuck on this potato topic. You already started late.
Yeah, true. All right. Let's go to the main topic yet or no? You know what?
You have to let people know we're just joking.
We're just joking.
Because some people think we're really
hate each other.
That remains to be seen.
How can you close the door? Oh my gosh,
You dropped your hammer.
I dropped my hammer.
How are you going to defend
Go fix it. Go fix it.
How am I going to fix it?
I don't know. Wrap it for me. All right. You know that there are two news I want to talk to you. First of all, you know, Cuba is having an official visit in Vietnam and the U.S. at the same time, and it's pretty awesome. Let me find some picture real quick. Cuba.
Are you looking for pictures of?
Vietnam and Cuba meeting.
I was afraid you were looking up like Cuban potatoes or something.
What the heck are you talking about?
Potatoes. Can't talk.
Can you do that? You're my producer now. Look for a picture of U.S. Vietnam Cuba official visit.
Yeah, I'll be the one in front of the drum.
Do that. And also Cuba, you know, President of Cuba is visiting the U.S. right now. New York, he's in New York, and he just visited the Malcolm X statue.
Oh wait, this is actually a picture of the Cuban vice president and the Vietnamese vice president.
Yeah.
You want that?
Yes. Vietnam and Cuba are probably favorite countries. I mean, it's really hard to fight against that. I mean, Cuba is my most favorite too, besides Laos. All right, that is it. Behind that, you know, like this is the vice president of Cuba and vice president of Vietnam having an official visit, like right now. It's happening right now. And behind them, I want to tell you a little bit of fun fact. Behind them is a bronze drum. Of course, it's just like a remake of it. It's not an original. One original is actually in the museum, but this is a remake of the bronze drum of Vietnam that 6,000 years ago, over 6,000 years ago, it is one of the 4 civilizations that formed Vietnam, and it's right in my hometown. Actually, the relic site that they found those bronze drums was near my hometown, so it's really amazing. And just to tell you that it's really funny because this is, you know, like everybody knows the fact that the Dong Son civilization was one of the very old civilization, one of the four that formed Vietnam today, and it's over 6,000 years. And we've been, my people have been living in Vietnam for thousands of years like this. And it's really funny to hear a bunch of, lies coming from reactionaries saying like, Vietnam is not indigenous, Vietnam this, Vietnam that. Like, no, actually, we've been living, my people have been living in this area for 6,000 years, so pretty much indigenous. And also we have 54 different ethnic minorities, so we are not a monolith kind of culture. And all the other 54, 53 ethnic minorities, they are well protected by the laws, by the constitution, by the regulation, and they well respected. Their languages are protected, their cultures are being preserved, and that is it. And that is a bronze drum that I'm very proud of, the Đông Sơn bronze drum. Okay, here's that. Here we go.
Arriving in
America. And of course, the first thing he did was to visit the Malcolm X statue in New York, alongside with Malcolm X's daughter, I think.
He spoke at the General Assembly of the United Nations.
Yep. That is so, like I want to point out a little bit about the hypocrisy, the difference of the two countries. When Joe Biden visited Vietnam just like a week ago, he did not visit Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum, which is the thing that nearly every single Vietnamese like respect him, and we have a mausoleum, blah, blah, blah. Most of all of the figureheads that came to Vietnam would visit Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum, but America never did, and I think that they never will. But they came and visit the capture statue to commemorate the capture of John McCain, and they turned it into. They caught it somehow. They caught it, the statue, the statue for John McCain, which is totally wrong. It is the statue to commemorate the capture of John McCain that it. Like honor the people who shot down and captured John McCain during the Vietnam War.
We also have video of the head of Communist Party USA meeting with the Vietnamese Communist Party. You want to watch that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. It's not long, it's 25 seconds.
I have to wear my headphones. Give me a second. Oopsie.
I'm actually curious because there's some confusion. Some people think that, so they gifted the CPUSA a vase, and some people think it's from the 1400s, but I think it's just a style of vase that dates back to the 1400s. Pretty sure.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm just curious. So anyway.
Let's do that.
Cái gốm sứ Chu Đậu là có niên đại là hơn 700 năm rồi.
The Chu Đậu ceramics have dated 700 years.
Từ thế kỷ thứ 14.
Since the 14th century.
Xin được tặng các đồng chí.
And I would like to take this as a gift to our comrades in the USA.
Thank you very much.
Once again, cảm ơn đồng chí đã
Các đồng chí.
So
Yeah.
the question is, was it actually a 700-year-old vase, or is it just the style of a 700-year-old vase?
This was really 700 years. It's real.
Is that what he said?
He said that it's like dated, like it's aged like over 700 years old from 14th century.
There were people like debating about it on social media.
That's funny.
But somebody found a picture of one that looked exactly like it that you could buy right now.
Play it again. Play it again for me.
Okay.
Oh, I don't need to wear that.
Chu Đậu là có niên đại là hơn 700 năm rồi.
The Chu Đậu ceramics have dated 700 years.
Từ thế kỷ thứ 14.
Since the 14th century.
Okay, God, I think it's not the original one. It's not. It's just a style.
The reason why somebody would say like, oh my gosh, they gave away a relic to America, blah, 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 blah.
No, it's not. It's not. It's like he said this style of ceramic, like the style of making this, the way of making this, the color, the shape, dated back 700 years ago.
Okay. That's what I figured out. But I wanted to confirm with you.
Yeah.
But somebody was, anti-communists were trying to say that it was like terrible that they were giving away this ancient base, but it's not really ancient. It's a reproduction.
Yeah, it's a reproduction of it.
I don't know.
That's funny.
I don't have a pony in the race. I'm just curious.
Hey Luna, how does Vietnamese youth feel about Vietnam's Marxism and socialism in general? I've met some teenagers there, and they were apathetic at best, and they worship Western culture. There are 2 points that I can tell you. This, generally speaking, Vietnamese people, especially young Vietnamese people, we are still very fond of our history. Uncle Ho and a lot of like Marx and Lenin, and we all love them. But the reason why that you met those people is because we have a survival bias. So usually people who are fond of, Marxism, Leninism, socialism, and our history tend to not feel comfortable with foreigners because to us, we just really assume that you are anti-communist, reactionary, white people. I mean white people, especially if you are white. We just assume that because rather safe than sorry. So that is why we don't tend to really open about our politics. People who are willing to talk to you about, open to talk to you about politics are people who liberals and love Western cultures. That is why, and they also assume that you're already a reactionary. That is why they're pretty open to talk about it. That is why, like a lot of, not just you, but a lot of, quote unquote expats, immigrants came to Vietnam, especially they're white. They said like, oh, what are you talking? I don't know what you're talking about because all I met is like reactionaries who are like liberals who like do not care about socialism. Like, yeah, you really have to understand why. Me as Vietnamese people who don't speak English or don't want to speak about politics in English with foreigners, we tend to not talk about it. And a very small amount of people who are willing to talk about it is people who already reactionary or liberals at best. And they assume that you're reactionary. You would agree with the thought. That is why they talk to you. And that is why you have a very limited understanding or, information about the youth of Vietnam. And it's a fact like, I just had a video and I am editing the video where I work with, like the youth of Vietnam, the Communist Youth Union, which is really huge union, like you see a student union in Vietnam with like hundreds of thousands of members. They're like big. It's mostly in every single schools, like high school and university.
6.1 million members in 2007.
In 2007, like 15 years ago, it's already 6 million members. Now let's imagine like over 10 thousand right here, 10 million right here. So there you go. That's how many we are, but we don't want to tell you because I'm sorry, we have a survival bias.
This is you just said it, survivor bias. So this is an image from, I believe, World War II. And basically it's a study they did on planes that came back and where they were damaged, right? Yeah. So, because they were trying to figure out where to put armor on airplanes. And the long story short is that this only shows planes that actually survived. It doesn't show planes that got shot down. Mm-hmm. So like there's no, if they followed this chart, they wouldn't have put any armor on the engines at all or the cockpit.
Yeah.
Which obviously would be much more likely to actually like take down an airplane. So the point of this is that your sample size can depend on like certain filters, things getting through certain filters. And I can tell you that when I lived in Vietnam my first year, I met a bunch of liberals and three stripes and reactionaries. And I kind of thought that was the norm because I didn't speak Vietnamese and I just hung out with a bunch of expats in the expat areas. And I just figured all Vietnamese people were like those Vietnamese people that I was talking to. But especially since I met Luna and I've been able to travel and she's been able to like help translate and taking me to like, like her village and other villages where they're just like a lot and just our neighborhood and stuff. And also she points things out like our neighbors constantly play communist music. You start to see through that filter more, because like Luna said, if you just go to Vietnam and you just go to the tourist areas
and you just talk to people who speak English, there's a survivor bias there, and that's why you would get the impression maybe that there's a lot more liberals than there actually are in Vietnam. So
Yeah, this is my tip for you, and also a tip from Nightwish here. Nightwish Sarah, here. But my computer cannot show it. What in the world? Okay, because you fight me, right?
No, I just started fighting. Anyway.
All right. If I go to Vietnam, you should walk around with a hammer and sickle. Exactly, that's exactly what you should do. If you,
I could tell you right now, when I walk around with hammer and sickle stuff, or if people even just see my communist
the
tattoo,
pith helmet.
yeah, the Ho Chi Minh helmet, they are very,
Here.
people are very excited.
Scatter this and wear like Ho Chi Minh sickle and hammer or anything, you would have a totally different experience.
I used to wear a Ho Chi Minh hat in Ho Chi Minh City a lot when I was teaching there. This is like a decade ago, and everyone would be like, Ho Chi Minh, when they'd point at my hat.
Yeah.
You know.
A lot of people from all kind of age,
also, even
would,
when I
like,
just
wave to you, smile at you, and
when I just wear my Ho Chi Minh
happy.
shoes, the rubber tire sandals, they'll point at my shoes. They'll be like Ho Chi Minh, and they'll like thumbs up.
Exactly. So there you go. That is how you will, and also wearing those things would like sway away those liberals, so you like just don't have to deal with them at all. So just like be open. Vietnam is totally 100% safe country for you to wear like communist things, and people would love that. So just like if it's your dream, just go to Vietnam and do that, and you will receive a warm welcome.
Now that being said, there are obviously liberals in
Yeah,
Vietnam
obviously. Yeah.
and reactionary fascist three stripes. So we're not trying to say like 100%, but I would have to say the overwhelming majority of people I've met, anecdotally, have been socialist. So you got another comment too.
I was lucky enough when I was in Vietnam that my guide was a Marxist and explained the history of revolution, Ho Chi Minh, and the history of the anti-colonial struggle. That's great. Lucky you. And also, yeah, I mean that there might be a lot of people who are like that, but they are not willing to talk to you because there's no indication from you that you would actually, like want to listen to those things. So yeah, it'll be great, wearing a small pin or a flag or pith helmet or some kind of scarf, something to point out to them. We would be more open to you.
It's like the opposite. In the USA, I have to hide my tattoo, and I certainly don't wear any of my like communist regalia when I'm just going out on the town or whatever. Whereas in Vietnam, I'm like very happy to wear my like communist stuff, and I just feel everyone just like it makes people happy. It doesn't, make people threaten my life.
Does
like
your
back in the
anarchist
US.
tattoo garner any reaction? No, right? In Vietnam, I mean.
No, most Vietnamese people I don't even think know what the anarchist symbol is. But
Yeah.
I don't think people have seen. Let me show my updated tattoo.
Yeah, I don't think people.
I haven't really showed it off yet.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta put pants on since I'm going on camera.
What are pants? Like, we as a human being, do we really need pants? We do, though.
Okay, so it's not really going to be very visible on camera, I guess. But we've got
Really cool.
Lady Liberty, Libertas, and then we've got the red flag. She's holding a hammer and sickle, and I just added the gear
And the red
and
star.
the red star.
Really
the gear is
awesome.
cool because it's on the Vietnamese seal.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. But
The
anyway,
gears indicate, the workers.
I know. I got the tattoo for it. I know, I'm just kidding. You're just here.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the most common thing when they see the anarchist symbol is they think it's an Avengers logo. Workers will unite.
Eddie said it's really cool.
Thank you.
Mm.
I like it.
I like it too.
Let's see if I can get it better.
Out of
It's gonna be out of
focus. Oh, good. Focus.
I know, going the wrong way. Wrong way. Oh my gosh, it's such a slow focus. There we go.
There you go.
There. Right. It's hard to get the angle, but you get the idea. It's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
All right, back to Luna.
Okay. Fix my
working on it. Look right at the camera.
This is live production.
I know, we're doing the best we can. We don't have like the whole crew.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's I think that we should go to the main topic today, right? Here we go. Let me okay. It's a good one. It's coming from the official.
Oh, wait, real quick, this is a good idea. Before
Yes.
you move on.
Yes.
Get some earrings, one sickle, one a hammer.
Yes.
We should do that.
Yes.
At the place where we got our wedding rings made.
You forgot about wedding rings.
We have communist wedding rings.
Yep. So total communist.
Okay, continue.
Continue. The main topic today
You got
is
water?
yes.
I'm gonna go have breakfast real quick.
This is from the official website of the government of Vietnam, one of the provincial government. Here it is from camau.gov.vn, an official site, no kidding. And here we go. This is an auto Google Translate, so please bear with me if the translation is not perfect. But I will try to explain all of the question that you might have. Okay. The name of the article is Fighting Against the Lies and Protecting Marxism, Leninism, Marxist-Leninist Theory in Today's Time, right? Okay, so there's the summary is this. It give you that we very like brief people. We give you the summary right before we actually go into the article. But here we go. Marxism and Leninism has three constituent parts, which are the Marxist-Leninist philosophy, number one. Number two is Marxist-Leninist political economy. And number three is scientific socialism. And these three parts are dialectically unified, stem from the foundation of dialectical materialism and historical materialism. And now it has become the focus of the sabotage from hostile forces, the reactionary forces. Therefore, are fighting against these lies and to protect Marxism, Leninism with the focus on dialectical materialism and historical materialism is very important, meaningful, and should be the main focus of the party and all the communist cadres. Like long story short, this is the summary. And here we go now, we will see what kind of lies and, fights that we have to fight against. It's going to be interesting seeing, seeing things from our perspective about what we have to deal with. Okay. First we have to identify the hostile and the wrong views toward Marxist-Leninist theory, something like that. Marxism, Leninism, born in the 40s of the 19th centuries. And after like more than 180 years, Marxism and Leninism has always been a worldview and methodology for the perception and practical activities of Vietnam. The core theory of Marxism, Leninism is very essential and very necessary because it's not just help us understand more correctly and more fully about the world, but also help us, to provide us a sharp theoretical weapons and solid ideas to fight against, all the attacks coming from the capitalists. Today, hostile forces continue to frantically and fiercely oppose the fundamental viewpoints of Marxism-Leninism, which are, fundamentally dialectical materialism and historical materialism. And talking about this, let me rant for about 5 minutes about this. You know that I just translated the book Dialectical Materialism, and you can get it in the banyanhouse.org. It is where, if you want to fully understand, comprehensively understand what is dialectical materialism, please check it out. You can get the ebook totally for free. And if you want to support us, please buy, the hard copy too. And there you go, banyanhouse.org/shop. That is where you can get it. And it is like the official curriculum, university textbook of Vietnamese students, we learn about this. So it is pretty much really awesome and dense kind of textbooks like that. And it'd be a great start for you if you are new to Marxism-Leninism, you don't know where to start and how to start. That book is the answer for you. And from that book, you can read further. And the second book that I am working on right now, me and EJ working on right now, is Historical Materialism, which is very important too. And you need to understand historical materialism before you can go further to, scientific socialism and to understand more about communism. That is a must. And hopefully this second book will be out in the next few months, something like that. And the thing that I want to talk about today is that about a few years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something, 2 years ago, I think, I was heavily attacked, just like the reactionaries attacked Marxism-Leninism, because I talk about Marxism-Leninism a lot, so of course I got attacked. And a lot of reactionaries, attacked me for saying that I was wrong about dialectical materialism, and all that they got is actually they were the one who mistook historical materialism to dialectical materialism, which is totally wrong and terrible like that. And because they are so ignorant and arrogant at the same time, they would even like incapable of distinguish between dialectical materialism and historical materialism. And the worst of that, they mistook them together. That was why they attacked me, and was like it was very frustrated I was very frustrated at that time to see like what is wrong with the education system over there. Wow, such a failed system. Oh my goodness. Kind of sad, to be honest. And also at the same time, I went to Google and I Googled, what is dialectical materialism? And you know what? Google at that time, I don't know how if it changed or not, but at that time, Google literally told me to my face that historical materialism is the synonym for dialectical materialism. I was shocked. At that moment, I was totally shocked. That like how could, like a very huge international site that a lot of billions of people trust that site can make this big mistake. I mean, that is why how so many people, especially people in the West, they are so ignorant and arrogant that they maybe spend like 2 minutes Googling. And since Google told them that historical materialism and dialectical materialism are just like the same thing, synonym for one same thing, of course, there are so many misunderstandings and false information about this. And of course, like this is a fight that I have to fight. This is really horrible, like really horrible. Long story short, historical materialism is an application of dialectical materialism into the study of human history. It's a dialectical materialist perspective, viewpoint about human history. And it's very different, very freaking different. For example, dialectical materialism, we focus on learning between the relationship between matter and consciousness, learning about, the principles of development and principle of, the general relationship and the contradiction. We learn about, the threshold of quality and quantity, something like that. But in historical materialism, we will learn about production forces. We learn about the modes of production and how actually the modes of production will define, the development of a society. And we learn about how social beings define social consciousness and all kind of forms of society. Like that's absolutely two different things. But then those people, they just don't know. That is why with the two books that I'm working on, the second book I'm working on, I hope that I can clear out some of the confusion and misunderstanding between these two terms and how important it is to understand both of them before we go further to learn about political economy and scientific socialism. So that is my rant about that. No, Google does not know philosophy. It does not. Oh, I have to put it down. Okay, good. All right, let's continue to the next part. All right. Okay, first, what are those attacks against Marxism-Leninism? The most common ones. First, the hostile forces claim that reactionaries claim that Marxist-Leninist philosophy was only correct in the 19th century and is no longer true. It's like an old doctrine that does not match with the current situation anymore, so we should abandon it. That's what they say. Okay. It is a very, it is a very simple way of thinking, and their thinking is not based on reality. It does not come from the objective reality. And then they, from very idealist stance like that, they came to a conclusion that is not rigorous and not logical, and even imposing the actual, like material conditions of the society. This way of thinking is currently quite popular, even appearing in the thinking and awareness of part of, even in the party members. Even there are some party members that, dismiss Marxism-Leninism and say it's old already. That is very dangerous. Okay. During his lifetime, Lenin fought and defended the practical viewpoint of Marxism-Leninism, requiring that cognition must be based on reality, and taking reality as the basis, the motivation, the goal, and the standard of cognition of truth. And Lenin stated clearly that, this is the translation from Google, it's not perfect, but paraphrasing is the perspective on life, on practice must be the first and the basic, the fundamental perspective of the cognitive theory. Long story short, it just means that we have to take actual reality as the basis for the theory that you're working on. Okay. Okay, it is necessary to have an objective attitude when evaluating the ideology and the value of Marxism-Leninism in the perception and transformation of human reality in the world. Okay, oh my God, it's so bad translation. I can't stand it. This is the proof to you why, Google translation and AI will not replace us soon, especially professional translators and interpreters, because I don't know, in a foreseeable kind of future, I don't see the machine can perfectly translate the two languages together like this, especially between the two languages is so different, like Vietnamese and English. Because this is so bad, my brain has to work like extra hard to really understand it. I rather really just check out the original Vietnamese version, because holy smokes, I rather just learn from this, read from the original version. It's a horrible translation. Okay, the point of this part is that even though Marxism-Leninism was born in the 19th century, in the very newly age of the Industrial Revolution, and it's gonna affect differently because our society right now has developed and changed very much, but this doesn't mean that Marxism-Leninism is not right anymore. But in fact, it proves to us that it is another base for us to, based on the Marxism-Leninism, we can reevaluate our understanding of the new era to make sure that our understanding still align with the actual reality that we are living in. Okay, so because as Engels said, like the ideology and the theories of Marxism, Leninism is not a dogma. It's not dogma. It's like it is something that must be developed and must be changed, like fulfilled more in the future. That is one of the quote coming from Engels. And yeah, I remember this quote. And in literally Engels and Marx told us that this is not a dead doctrine. We must not be dogmatic about this, because this is a live kind of ideology and we need to develop further in the future. And it was Lenin who did it, and also at the same time, Mao Zedong and Ho Chi Minh, when they apply Marxism, Leninism into the material conditions of Vietnam, this is literally exactly what they did. They learned, they took the core fundamental ideas of Marxism, Leninism, and then they apply those into the very specific material conditions of Vietnam and China, and then Quezon from behind in Laos, and like in North Korea too. And that is our own development of Marxism, Leninism into the very specific material conditions of our country at that time. That is what I've been telling you a lot, that it is also your task too. When you learn Marxism, Leninism, you do not just learn it by heart, just like copy what they said and to follow exactly the books as they are Bibles, because they are not. And it is literally Engels and Marx beg you to not do that. Do not treat it as a dead ideology, as a Bible. That is why I criticize a lot, those ultras, about, they have those ultras, they very dogmatic about the idea of Marxism, and they have to they take the words very seriously and strictly like that, and they won't accept any kind of development of any other country. This is why they attack Vietnam and China and Laos and Cuba and even North Korea for being revisionist, because we dare to apply what we learn into our practice. And from that practice, we came up with our own development, and we came up with our own way to work on our socialist path. But to them, it is considered as, a revisionism, considered as a trade of communism, and they came attacking. Those are people who are actually, they call themselves the only true Marxists, but actually they are the anti-Marxists. They are doing exactly what Engels told them to not do, which is to take the ideas as Bible, as some dead doctrine that cannot change at all. And that is very, very different. A strict policy against revisionism is a good idea. I have to ask you, how do you define revisionism? Because that is very important. Now, I can tell you that Lenin did talk about revisionism a lot in his lifetime. He fought against, the Marxism time, the guy who called himself Marxist. And then Lenin criticized them of being revisionist. And our definition of revisionism is very different from the definition
Ernst Mach.
Ernst Mach. Mach. That's the guy. Mach. So we call them Macher in Vietnamese, so the Mach. So that is the guy. So our definition of revisionism is very different from the definition coming from the ultras. So Lenin's definition of revisionism is the revisionists are people who claim themselves to be Marxist-Leninist, but because they don't understand deeply the nature and the true meaning of Marxism-Leninism, they took it very stiffly, very strictly like that. So whenever they encounter a new situation that was not mentioned in the books, something new happened, and the books did not predict that, they kind of panic. They were like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do right now because the book didn't mention this. I don't know. What do we do now? They panic. They don't know where to start and how to deal with that. And they actually came, instead of learning about situation and apply the ideas we learned into that, they became panic and they don't know where to start. They lost all of the foundation. And they came back and they tried to revise Marxism-Leninism to match their own subjective thought, to match this new situation, something like that. So that is Lenin's and our definition of revisionism is people who, because they encounter new things in the new era that was not predicted in the book, so they came and they actually revised the ideology of Marxism-Leninism to match with what they think is going on right now. Because Marxism-Leninism not predicted this, so they were kind of wrong. We have to go back and revise those things. That is the word revisionism came from, because they revised Marxism-Leninism to match with the actual material condition that they encounter. Okay? Now, the revisionism definition from ultras, I haven't met actually any good, definition yet, because I don't think they agree with each other about the definition of revisionism. To them, according to what I see from them, any kind of country that exists today is a revisionist. China is a revisionist. Vietnam is a revisionist. Cuba is revisionist, because Cuba is trying to, have a conversation with the USA and try to lift the sanctions, try to get the USA to lift the sanction. Cuba is a revisionist. It's weird. It's weird. So whatever thing that we do, whenever Vietnam and China and Laos, we open our economy because we were heavily sanctioned by the USA and we need to feed our people. And because we had to do the đổi mới reforms, and I made a whole video and many live streams talking about it, and how we still trying to maintain, the core doctrine of Marxism-Leninism and survive in this world, they call us revisionist. So that is their definition of revisionism. Anybody that do not follow their exact thought. That is one of the main core difference, I think. I could be wrong, and you can correct me. I think that is my biggest critique against those ultras, because they are dogmatists. They treat those books as Bibles and they don't dare to change. I think that is why actually I don't see any ultra revolution yet. If they claim that they've been the true leftists and true Marxist Leninists, and they claim that they're so good, they're so pure, they're so powerful, they're so strong, I haven't seen any actual ultra revolution yet. And here's the thing too, the moment that Marxism-Leninism had a successful revolution, that is the moment we stop being real Marxists, because we actually put the thoughts into action and we have something in real life. That is why we stop being, the cool dudes in their eyes, and we became revisionists because, we dare to have some modification and dare to apply Marxism in real life. And since we put them in practice, we learn that this works and this doesn't work in our situation. So we need to come up with a new policy, something a little bit. That is the biggest difference. And this is a book, this is in the book Dialectical Materialism, when we talk about dogmatism and revisionism in the relation to private and common. So, my screen is not good, EJ. So if you want me to read this out, you have to come here and do it, because my screen is not good at all. My eyes cannot read this. Oh my gosh, EJ, hate you. Yeah, I mean, Marxism-Leninism is a science, not a religion. Exactly. You have to apply it in real life, and after applying it, you would know that this works and this doesn't work. Also, dogmatism is the flexible adherence to ideas as incontrovertibly, true, which referring us to, EJ, you have to come here. I'm sorry, I can't read this. Whatever you're trying to do, I can't read. Just go check my screen. It's you, but my computer screen is tiny and the lines are broken. It's really hard for me to guess.
Yeah, you need to. Oops. What the heck? You just disappear?
Yeah, I tried that and just change the total.
Why does it do that?
The total set.
There, you can maximize it.
All right. Okay. Good. Okay. Dogmatism is the inflexible adherence to ideas as incontrovertibly true while refusing to take any contradictory evidence into consideration. Dogmatism stands in direct opposition to materialist dialectics, which seeks to form opinions and continuously opinion and conclusions only after careful consideration.
Linda, you might want to set this up. Nobody knows what you're reading.
I did.
You told them it's from the book?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was probably running to help you.
Exactly. So this, again, I say that one more time. This is apart from the book that I translated, the Dialectical Materialism, and we explain what, dogmatism means and what revisionism means. Now continue. Dogmatism stands in direct opposition to material dialectics, which seeks to form opinions and conclusions only after careful consideration of all observable evidence. All right? Dogmatism typically arises when the common is overemphasized without the due consideration of the private. I was talking about the common and the private too. A dogmatic position is one which adheres to ideas about commonalities without taking private subject into consideration. Okay, common and private. Oh my gosh, I have to talk about this too in order to people to understand. Can you move forward to the revisionism part? And just here we're talking about in the part about private and common when how we have to fully understand that. Okay. According to Vietnam's curriculum of the philosophy of Marxism-Leninism, the opposite of dogmatism is revisionism. Revisionism occurs when we overestimate the private and fail to recognize the commonalities. In failing to recognize common attributes and features between and within things, phenomena, and ideas, a revisionist faces confusion and disorientation whenever they encounter any new things, phenomena, and ideas, because they lack any insight into essential characteristics of the subject and its relations with other subjects. All right, so there you go. As I said before, revisionism, according to our...
I think the example is the most important part there.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Okay.
It explains it again.
For example, if Sally has spent a lot of time studying a red apple, she may start to become confident that she understands everything there is to know about apples. If she is then presented with a green apple, she might become confused and disoriented and draw the conclusion that she has to start all over again with her analysis from scratch, thinking, this can't possibly be an apple because it's not red. It must be something else entirely. Sally can avoid this revisionist confusion by examining the other common features with the red and green apple share before making any conclusion. That is a very simple example of revisionism and what does it mean too. How do I do this? Is this me? Wait a minute. Oh, we have a, wait a minute. Cornelia say, I remember for months now. 8 months, what do you call it? Anniversary. Thank you so much. Super chat from, it was a strict policy against dogmatism. Exactly. You have to fight against both revisionism and dogmatism. Thank you so much for super chat. Exactly that. Okay, I'm back. This is so deep. I mean, if you really want to fully understand, it's not actually that hard. You know, at the first glance, you might feel that. But it's something that very close to you in daily life. And it's just very simple. And actually, the purpose of my translation is to bring the knowledge to you, the knowledge that might sound to you at the first glance like kind of, you know, deep and boring and something like too much to understand, but I try to bring you, you know, examples and explain it in a simple way for you all to understand it. So yeah, hopefully you can check that book out.
I guess one thing that I like about the book's definition is that it fights back against this weird ultra leftist idea that revisionism is any time you like update anything that Marx wrote down. You know, like Marx is basically word is gospel. Because if you go by that definition, then Marx himself is a revisionist because Marx updated his ideas over time.
Yep.
And they literally, like, if you read the Communist Manifesto, I think it's the preface to the 1872 edition or something, they literally say, like, hey, a lot of the stuff we wrote in the Communist Manifesto in 1848, it's, like, obsolete now. And we've learned things that, so we now know that some of the things we said in the Communist Manifesto aren't actually true. Like, one of the specific examples they used was, like, you can't just take over the bourgeois democracy and, like, pull the levers and build communism through the bourgeois democracy, right? Like, that's something that they thought was true in 1848, and they changed their mind about that as they went along, like Marx and Engels. So that idea that, like, revisionism is just when you don't follow exactly what Marx wrote down, that doesn't make any sense because Marx's ideas were changing and developing over time. So this gives you a better kind of framework, you know, that's actually rooted in dialectical materialism, where it's like, okay, if you stray too far in one direction, it becomes dogmatism, and that's when you're just like, you have like a axiom, and it's like, this is always true at all times. It's never, ever, ever not true. That's like dogmatism. You have no flexibility whatsoever. And revisionism being where you go in the opposite direction, and you're like constantly reformulating everything based on every new piece of information or every new occurrence. You kind of want to be a centrist in that regard, like an enlightened centrist, and like don't stray too. And the fact is, and I think this is one of the interesting things about dialectical materialism, you know, is it recognizes that we're constantly going to be straying off the path. You know, we're always going to be, you know, moving a little bit too far into revisionism or a little bit too far into dogmatism. And certainly, I think the Communist Party of Vietnam has recognized that, because they constantly talk about how, oh, we made this decision and it was a little bit too dogmatic, or we made this decision and it was a little too revisionist. And that's what is important, is that you understand what those words really mean so that you can check yourself against this metric and like keep, you know, try to go back to the path.
Yeah.
And you'll find that as you're studying dialectical materialism, there's a lot of concepts that are like that. Like tailism and commandism is a similar thing.
Yeah.
Where you're constantly in danger of moving a little too far into tailism or a little too far into commandism, and you have to keep making adjustments as you go along. And the way you do that is by looking at the material impacts of your actions and, you know, testing your theory with practice. So anyway, I just thought it's a good thing about the book.
Yep. Kai said, it's just promoting centrism. I mean, the same thing as, you know, the democratic centralism. You have to balance between those two in order to go straight forward.
I was joking when I said centrist. I just mean don't stray into either path, just in case that wasn't clear.
Yeah, got it. So remember back to the article. Remember that the first attack that we mentioned is that they said that Marxism-Leninism is too old already. It's not suitable anymore. They do say that it is because they don't understand, revisionism or dogmatism. That is why they fall into, like that kind of trap. That is why they think that Marxism is not suitable anymore. It's just they cannot apply it creatively into the material conditions. That is the biggest problem. And yeah, the second attack, it is the they, those reactionaries, like the reactionaries that claim themselves to be kind of a little bit understanding of Marxism-Leninism, the kind of academic kind of side, reactionary academic, they say that the historical materialism of Marxism-Leninism is actually, it just, what do you call it? Like the, EJ, the word that we use is trivial materialism. What do you call it in English? I forgot. You changed it. Vulgar. Yes, so vulgar. They think that those reactionary academic anti-Marxists they call dialectical historical materialism is like a vulgar kind of materialism, or it's just a pure economy kind of materialism, all right? And it like absolutize is the Vietnamese word. It means that like we like just like only consider the material production of society to be the core, only consider the economy, and it doesn't consider the other kind of the aspects such as like the mental production and human reproduction, something like that. So now this is the fight against, I gotta say, class reductionist right here, right now. So one of the attack, I explain this again. One of the attacks coming from one of very famous class reductionist. It's class reductionism. So long story short, in the early 20th centuries, there was something called economism. Economism, and Lenin attacked against this too in his lifetime. Economism in Russia at that time was people who only cared about economy. And everything must be, boiled down into just economy. We should not care about anything else, but only just economy. But because they came from the idea of Marx and Engels that, the social being defines social consciousness, and then the base defines the superstructure. And the core issue of it is economy, and a class, the struggle of class is like to the end of it, to the last cause of it is economy. It is a difference in the interest, in the benefits between different classes of people. But at the same time, we also need to consider different aspects of a society, social consciousness, the emotion, the feeling, the psychology of the society too, not just economy. Economy is the main fundamental, but not the only. And the other things also affect that kind of fundamental economy. But those economists, we call them economists, Lenin called them economists. They said like they only consider that and put down everything at that. And I do believe that class reductionism is a version of this economism in the 21st society nowadays. And yeah, all they care about is, the money. If they, let's say they do care about the economy, the money, and everything would be fine. Meanwhile, they do not, they literally undermine all other aspects of society. For example, they undermine class reductionists nowadays. They undermine sexism, racism, all kind of queerphobia, all kind of attacks that capitalists are using to divide the working class. They told us to forget all those they call those secondary struggles, and they don't matter. Those things don't matter. All we should care about and only care about is class struggle, is the economy only. That is the core of it. And that is my critique against those class reductionists, is because they too dogmatist, and they too what do you call it? Their perspective is too narrow. You know, they misunderstood what Marxism and Leninism actually says. Yes, they do say that the economy is very important. It's the base of society. But it is just a determining factor. It's not everything. And other things also affect it. And also, you know, like the thing is that, like, just like matter and consciousness, matter define consciousness in dialectical materialism. Matter define consciousness, but consciousness can also come back and impact back on matter. That is why, yes, it's matter define consciousness that, yes, this world that we're living in, the rock, the mountain, the water, the land, the trees exist before us. It is define our consciousness because, like, yes, based on this material world, human then exists, and we form our consciousness, and then we see those rocks as they are right now. From that, like, so you can see that the source of our consciousness is from the material, is from matter. So matter defines consciousness. But at the same time, consciousness can go back and impact back on the matter. And that is the whole fundamental meaning of Marxism, is to use human activities to, there's a flies in here. The human activity to change the material world. That is the whole point of being a communist. It's to change the material world to make a better life for people. So for example, I see a piece of rock, like this used was a piece of metal. I see a piece of rock, and then, okay, I want to change this rock into a shape, like Ho Chi Minh shape, like this. Okay, so that is why our consciousness I perceive the rock as a matter. And then we have our own ideas that we want to modify this rock so it can meet my need. This is why, like, we use our hands, our body, our tools to change that rock, to shape it into a statue like Ho Chi Minh statue to this day. And that is the power of consciousness and human activities that impact back on the matter base, right? That is a very simple explanation of that. The same as a human society. Yes, the base, the economy define the consciousness of that society. That is why we live in a capitalist society right now, in the capitalist kind of economy, where the workers do not own the means of production, and the capitalists own everything. That is, yes, define our consciousness, define the social consciousness of that society. But at the same time, we can impact back on that base by, okay, with the working class. We understand our consciousness, understand that that is the capitalist mode of production right now. That is how the society functions. And we as communists and socialists, we have to find a way to end it. We don't want this anymore. Find a way to attack that base. And to attack that base, we cannot just care about class struggle, which is about the economy, the money, the benefit, the means of production. Because that is not only the weapons that the capitalists are using to fight against us. No. They are also at the same time using sexism, racism, queerphobia, and a lot of other attacks. They intertwine with each other. I'm not saying that capitalism creates sexism, racism, and queerphobia. They don't. But they are using those things all at the same time with the economy weapons to fight against us, to divide us so they can conquer us. That is very important. So I am speaking as a bisexual Vietnamese communist woman living in this capitalist hellhole of the world, right? When I fight against capitalism, I fight against the capitalist mode of production, the economy kind of system. But at the same time, I want to fight against sexism, against racism that I'm dealing with, against queerphobia that are being used against me in our daily life. It is our daily life. Class struggle intertwined with racism, sexism, and queerphobia. To attack against that capitalism system, we have to attack all at once, because anything relates to everything. And if they understand dialectical materialism is very like that, and I don't, here's the thing, speaking as a bisexual Vietnamese communist woman, I do not want to work with anybody who tell me to forget about my daily struggle, to just focus on class struggle. Like, no, dude, I face racism, sexism, equipment nearly every single day in my life, in my workplace, so I'm not gonna just forget that and only focus on this. You know, like they all work together.
I think it's also important to, so nowadays a lot of the people that are class reductionists tend to be like pretty much reactionaries and crypto fascists and ultra leftists and that sort of thing, but not everybody who veers into class reductionism is necessarily like bad or has bad intentions. And a good example of that, I think, is I did a video on the IWW in the 1910s and 20s. And at that time, the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World, which is a militant industrial union in the USA, it was basically the only organized working class movement in the USA that was mixed, you know, between black and white workers, and where the white workers were recognizing the problems of black people and welcoming black members in. So all the other workers' unions and the Socialist Party at the time were very racist against black people. And the IWW was like pretty much the only mass organization that was really trying to help black people. But even they kind of strayed into class reductionism, because they said very directly, and I read a lot of the period sources, primary sources, like their journals at the time and that sort of thing, and some of the articles written by some of the founders, including Eugene Debs, who I actually respect Eugene Debs a lot, but I think Debs and the IWW made a big mistake, because they said that the only thing that black workers have is their labor, and that's that they should only exclusively focus on unionism, like unionizing, and they shouldn't waste time on anything else, is basically the way they put it.
Yeah.
And that's class reductionism, because, and that's also why they did draw a lot of support from black people compared to other unions that had white people in them, but, you know, because all the other white unions were not allowing black members.
Yeah.
But they didn't really get to the heart of the black community at the time, because they were not addressing the very real problems they were having in their day-to-day lives.
And at that time, there were, you know, racism in the unions. You have to fight against that.
Right.
Well, a safe place.
I think the IWW fought against racism in the unions very well.
Yeah,
that's something
exactly.
I will give them credit for. But like, for instance, black people were just getting like lynched, and they were facing all kinds of discrimination that didn't have to do with the workplace. And I think if the IWW had a little bit more of a broader political scope, or at least if there was some other organization that would work with the IWW or something, but that wasn't getting any attention. And I think that's kind of why it failed ultimately, because they couldn't really get the mass movement going, you know, throughout the majority of the black population. And at the time, they were like the most oppressed workers and very populous with the working class. So anyway, that is to say that I don't think the IWW were bad people, and I certainly don't think that most of them were racists, but they were class reductionist, and that was a big foundering point. It caused them to not be as successful as they might have been otherwise.
Yeah. There's a super chat from Family Fun Time. Well, what do you say is the best way to deprogram people who have been fed capitalist anti-communist propaganda their whole lives? Have to ask EJ, because it is him who faces. What is your answer about this, for this question?
Well, real quick, Big Teal said some were racist. I said, yeah, some were racist. I didn't say they were all not racist.
Yeah, some were.
Okay, let's see.
What is the best way to deprogram people who have been fed the capitalist?
Yeah, I should answer this question, because I've been fed capitalist anti-communist propaganda my whole life, unlike Luna. It's like, here's the thing. I guess it depends on I hope this doesn't sound like a mealy mouth answer, but first it depends on who you are and who you're talking to and their circumstances. But generally speaking, if you're talking about organizing your community, I would say put practice first you're not going to just debate people into communism or like, talk them into communism. You have to show them materially the benefits. And to me, that I believe means that communists in places like the USA should be looking at what the Black Panthers did in terms of trying to organize urban communes and provide material support for the people. Look to what the Vietnamese did during World War II, during the occupation of fascist Japan, when there were millions of Japanese people starving because of the genocidal policies of the Japanese Empire. They were stealing rice from the Japanese and giving it to the people.
Yeah.
The Black Panthers were building free breakfast and lunch services for children in their communities. They were providing free childcare. We need to look at practical ways we can go into our communities and show and demonstrate and do communism in our communities, practically speaking. Now, that's if you're talking about in your community. If you're just talking about like you have a friend or a family member or something, or it bothers you that they are very anti-communist and you want to change their mind, I understand that drive. Because I have a lot of friends and family members that I want to convert. I have converted a few, and in that situation, I think it really comes down to listening. It's less about what you have to say and more about listening. And if you ask them a lot of questions and try to understand how are they suffering? Everyone suffers because of capitalism. Everyone. And if you can identify the ways that they're suffering under capitalism, that's going to be the foundation of building that relationship and showing them that there is a better path forward. And another thing is teaching them the philosophy underlying it, dialectical materialism, and showing them the flaws in things like metaphysics and liberalism and all that sort of thing. And not to beat the drum again, but I think that's where Luna's translation of the dialectical materialism curriculum comes in handy, because it arms you with a lot of knowledge about the problems with like Western liberal metaphysics. But again, you're not going to just debate your way or argue your way into communism. So even when you're talking to your friends or your family, I mean, I think you have to walk the walk to some extent and show them what you're doing and show them how you're helping your community. So if you're actually doing practice, it goes a long way, because you could say, hey, look, we helped build a food pantry, or we're actually going out and feeding houseless people, or we're actually going out and helping unionists out on the strike lines. Whatever your local organization or party decides to do, that's where you can actually like point to your activity and invite them to the activity and invite them along and say, hey, why don't you come with me? We're going to, help organize poor people in some way or another. You know what I mean? So that's, I think, a lot more powerful than just throwing a bunch of words at people. And there's a lot of, that's kind of anathema to the online left community, especially because so much of it revolves around like debate and this idea that we could just like debate fascists and debate liberals and somehow magically communism will like sprout from that. That's not true. Ho Chi Minh and Fred Hampton did not accomplish what they accomplished by talking to people. And Fred Hampton said very specifically, we can't just talk and we can't just listen. We have to act, and that means making mistakes. I'm paraphrasing, but Fred Hampton said that means we're going to make mistakes. And it's scary. It's scary that we're going to make mistakes, but we have to make them, and then we have to learn from those mistakes. And that's the core, that's the heart, that's the essence of dialectical materialism. So that's all I got to say.
Great answer. And we also have a silver stickers from John T. It is a pair doing, practice exercising, and the message is keep it up. That's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Antonio Oliver got married.
Oh yeah.
Chúc mừng.
Chúc
Chúc mừng
mừng.
đồng chí.
Chúc mừng nha. Welcome to the married land.
If you need advice on where to get communist wedding rings, let us know. We'll hook you up.
Yeah, it's in high end. Really cool, actually. Beautifully put, EJ.
Oh, shucks.
That's Richard said.
Thank you. I don't even remember what I said, but I hope it was useful stuff.
So yeah, don't be class reductionist. That's my advice.
TLDR.
TLDR. Don't be class reductionist. All right, the final attacks against that thing is okay, so this is the kind of funny one. They said that the Communist Party of Vietnam is all the kind of Communist Party in the world that using Marxism Leninism as a foundation of the ideology of the party.
Wait, sorry, this is a really funny one.
Mm.
You mean Ho Chi Minh didn't just ratio LBJ
No, sadly no.
with facts and logic?
Facts and logic. Okay, the third attack again is like this is sort of like the Marxism Leninism as foundation for ideology of any communist party is the wrong of about the worldview and the methodology, because they don't trust in the dialectical materialism, something like that. It's absolutely, this is a very ding dong attack. I don't know how can I explain into this, because like of all of the things that I explained to you before, Marxism Leninism is a science. It's not a dead doctrine, and we need to apply it creatively. Very important. Cap locks creatively here. Apply it creatively into the material conditions of society to understand what's been going on in the true nature of this material condition, and from that, thinking from the perspective of the oppressed people, how to change it, how to stop it. That is why it is very much a very kind of, what do you call it? A very flexible kind of ideology. The whole point of Marxism-Leninism is to use dialectical materialism to understand about the nature of this material world, and then applying it into human history. And with historical materialism, we understand about the nature of human society. Human society is one of the top most complex kind of concept of humanity that is very important but very complex, something like that. So using applied Dimat and his math into understanding the history of human being, what is the driving force of the society, why human society changed and how to make it change. And then the next part is going to be, it is about political economy. It's like, okay, after understanding the human society and the driving forces of human society, understand that it's actually the economy, the base that define it. And don't fall into class reductionism. Don't forget that the other thing can also like impact back on it. The next to focus on is political economics. Learn about the actual nature of capitalism, the exploitation, the surplus value, the value theory. Because in order to defeat something, we have to understand it first. We cannot just come in there, fight against it, totally blind. All right. So for political economy is the way to teach you to understand the true nature, the functions of capitalism, the capitalist mode of production, and from that we came up with a better solution, which is the communist mode of production and how it functions. So after laying all out to you, hey, this is how capitalism actually works, and this is our suggestion of a communist mode of production and how it will, how it will replace this capitalist mode of production. And the final part is the answer to the question, okay, how do we replace capitalist mode of production with communist mode of production? And this is the last part about scientific socialism. How to scientifically move a society from capitalism into socialism and then next communism. That is the path that we are following in here. And again, I say that it is science. Socialism, Marxism, Leninism, and the end goal communism is a science. We have to apply it creatively, learn the core meaning of it, and do not be dogmatist about it. Right. I say it again. First, you need to understand dialectical materialism, the worldview, methodology to understand this material world. Next, you apply that worldview into the history of human beings, because that's what we're focusing on here. After learning about historical materialism, history of the human beings, we learn about political economics, learn about how to change the base, understand the true nature of capitalism, and then the promises of communism. the final answer is how to move society from capitalism towards socialism, communism. Here you go. That is the path that I'm working on. So I think that is the three main attacks against Marxism coming from reactionaries, and I answer to all of them. The first attack is, said that Marxism is too old already. It's not does not match with the modern society anymore. I criticize that already. The second attack is that Marxism-Leninism is actually what I forgot. Shoot. The second one is against that. They believe Marxism-Leninism is just vulgar materialism or economism. I fought against, class reductionism. In this second point, the third point is that the methodology and taking Marxism-Leninism as a foundation of ideology is a wrong perspective, because they support the status quo. They want to maintain the status quo. They're capitalist lovers, so that is why they think that thinking from the perspective of oppressed people is wrong. That is the best explanation that I can have for you. Okay, I'm checking the chat right now. I hiểu. There's a cô in the chat, right? Chào cô. Tại vì she called me cháu. It's just like niece or niece. So I guess like she's my aunt's age. That's what I guess. Because our way of saying is like we to show respect, we will call other people as our family members.
Chào cô.
Chào cô. Chào cô. Okay, so there's a lot of chat that I missed. Oops. I like this. Try again. Try again. Fail again and fail better. Okay, we have about, because I'm late today, so we still have about 20-30 minutes left. It's time for Q&A. Have any questions for me? What did you say to people who defend capitalism because it's in human nature to be greedy?
Oh.
Gosh, yes, I know this. I know what you're talking about. Okay, I will give you my answer, and I want to hear Izai's answer too. Okay? I say it fast. First of all, you have to define human nature to be greedy. Human nature to be greedy is a line actually came from capitalists in 18th century, right? Am I right? Adam Smith and Ricardo, something like that, around that time?
No, it's more like a Hobbes.
Hobbesing?
Yeah.
Oh, the names just mess in my head.
It goes back to like
One of those.
So
18th century, right?
Yeah, like I think it was Hobbes who lived
You-
in the English
okay.
Civil War. And
Yeah.
He had a bad time, so he thought all humans are just horrible
Gosh.
by nature.
First of all, human nature to be greedy is totally a white concept. It's a Western concept coming from white people, evil white people. They are evil and greedy because they think everybody is evil and greedy. Very individualistic kind of mindset. Just talk to those people about like what do they know? Do they know that in Asia, like non-white culture, for thousands of years, not just from 18th century, for thousands of freaking years, we've been teaching each other that the human nature is we were born good. We were born as a blank, paper, blank. And what will turn into when we grow up based on the life, based on the education, based on the material condition, the families that we grow up with. That is what will define us, but we were born good, blank. And even Ho Chi Minh, he fought against this too. He has a poem he wrote when he was alive in the, I think the 40s or something like that. I could be wrong, but around that time, he wrote that in Vietnamese word. Hiền dữ đâu phải là tính sẵn, phần nhiều do giáo dục mà nên. And that means that good or bad, it is not what you were born with. Most of it is because of the education. That is what Ho Chi Minh said. That is our, non-white perspective about what they call human nature, if it exists, is we were born blank. And what we turn greedy or good or bad, it is because of the material condition we grew up, the education, the family. So to debunk that false narrative about human nature, what is your opinion, EJ?
I'm just going to go to Marx. Marx wrote, human nature is the true community of men. Community is emphasized here. So human nature is the true community of men by manifesting their sorry for the gendered language, by the way. This is from a long time ago. By manifesting their nature, men create, produce the human community, the social entity, which is no abstract universal power opposed to the single individual. That's important. The community is not an abstract power opposed to the single individual, but is the essential nature of each individual, his own activity, his own life, his own spirit, his own wealth. So this is very, very fundamental to understanding dialectical materialism. You define things by their relationships, right? So any given individual human being is defined by internal and external relationships. Internal relations being like your own thoughts, your cells in your body, your organs, etc. But also, very importantly, you're defined by your external relationships with your community. And also, Marx and Engels believed, and I agree, that human nature, therefore, is very malleable and develops over time. So there is no single, essential human nature that is unchanging throughout all of history, going back to when humans first evolved. Yeah, I mean, that's silly. That's just silly. We're obviously, I don't know, me growing up in the USA, our community and me as an individual is quite different from Vietnam and Vietnamese individuals, but also we're very, very different from the first human beings who, were in the Stone Age, they were obviously very, very different from us. They had different lives. We don't know what their ideology was, but obviously they lived very, very different lives than us, right? I mean, it's just silly to think that they were exactly the same and had the exact same concerns and ideas as we do today. That's just absurd. And anyway, but I think it's really important to understand that human nature is community. We are a social being.
Yeah.
You cannot live as an individual.
For example, to prove that point, human nature is community, because if it is not, why do you think that imprisonment is one of the worst, punishment? Imprisonment, and even the worst of that was imprisoned, but if you commit terrible crimes according to that reasons, you would be in what do you call it, solitary for
Solitary confinement in a prison.
Solitary confinement for
it's a punishment.
That is a horrible punishment.
It's actually defined as torture.
Exactly.
In a lot of places,
to take you away from other people. That is considered a very bad punishment.
Yeah. So I mean, right now, people act a certain way because of capitalism, right? There's a pattern of behavior that people do exhibit under capitalism, and that's because capitalism is a very dehumanizing political economy. I mean, but people today, workers today, act very differently and have different survival strategies than, for instance, peasants under feudalism. Peasants under feudalism were not acting like workers today. For one thing, if you were a peasant under feudalism, one of the primary activities that you did to survive was working the common land with your fellow villagers. Socialistic practices were very important to the survival of feudal peasants. in a way that's not true today, because now the worker has been so individualized that, you know, and set in competition against our fellow workers. That does create a lot of competitive behavior, but that doesn't mean that that's human nature. That's the nature of capitalism. Capitalism is what sets us against each other, and only socialism can free us from that pattern. With us building class consciousness and recognizing that only by working together and understanding that we have a lot more in common as workers than we do, you know, we shouldn't compete with each other, basically. It's why I called my channel Non-Compete, because we have to build this idea, the socialist idea, and build class consciousness. So yeah, there's a nature of capitalism that instills certain patterns of behavior in the working class, but we can break those patterns, and many people have broken those patterns in the past. And I believe in Vietnam, they've definitely gone a long way in breaking those patterns, because, you know, just going through COVID here, the collective, and by the way, that collectivism goes back centuries here.
Yes,
Vietnam has had a
thousands of years.
Collectivism has been deeply ingrained in Vietnamese culture for a long time, and imperialism and feudalism and colonialism and capitalism never really broke that. And socialism, I think, has made it flourish a lot more. So when I was going through COVID, it was like startling to me how collectivist people were and how willing they were to make sacrifices for other people, including me. You know, our neighbors were very, very caring and kind and gracious towards me as a foreigner and a stranger that they didn't really know. They were, you know, giving us food and checking in on us and making sure we had everything we needed all the time. Anyway, the point of the matter is that the way that people tend to act in like the worst, most developed capitalist countries like the USA, that's not human nature. That is just, I would define it as symptoms of abuse, systematic abuse of the entire society, which has taken place over centuries.
It's very traumatic.
Yeah, trauma is a big part of what people exhibit under capitalism, the behaviors.
Yeah. Next question is, how is the immigration situation from the USA to Vietnam evolving? Testing the winds at the moment. Immigration.
If you want to actually become a citizen, if you mean to immigrate permanently, it's not that hard, but you have to learn Vietnamese, basically. I mean, there are ways around it. Like, for instance, for humanitarian reasons, if you're a refugee or something, they will waive that. But generally speaking, the interview is conducted in Vietnamese, and you have to show that you can speak Vietnamese, mostly because they just want to make sure you can integrate into the community and, you know, be okay here. It only takes there's not like a certain amount of time you have to live here or anything like that. But you do have to demonstrate that you can like take care of yourself and everything, as far as having a job and that sort of thing. But if you just mean coming here like to live temporarily or just for a few years or whatever, that's easy. Especially if you speak English and you have a bachelor's degree, then you can get a teaching job pretty easily. Otherwise, it's a little harder to get gainful employment. You could definitely be like a digital nomad. There are a lot of people that do that here. But there's not really a lot of barriers for most. I can't think of a single country that has like a real hard time getting a visa or anything like that.
But the thing is, talking about immigration, you know, lately I saw a lot of. The thing is, I saw a lot of people from Europe and Latin America visiting Vietnam, but not Americans.
Yeah, there were so many Spanish speakers on our flight when we went to Hanoi, and then when we were going around the city, like every restaurant we went to, everyone was speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
And that's new. I mean, I probably could have counted on two hands the number of Spanish speakers I met in Vietnam in the last 10 years. But then this trip to Hanoi, it was just like
everybody speaking Spanish.
Like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah.
It was wild. It was awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of Indians too coming to Vietnam too. A lot of Indians.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, because I remember specifically, I guess around 2015 or so, I met a couple of guys from Mexico, and they were the first Spanish-speaking people that I met in Vietnam, and that was after living here for like 3 years. So, but now I guess it's more common. So cool. Welcome, camaradas.
Yeah. why do some groups of communists say there is no real socialist societies? Are they being dogmatic? First of all, you have to ask them what is their definition of socialism. From that, we can, understand their perspective, because a lot of people believe, I don't know, they have something in their head that they think socialism is when every worker is on their own means of production. That is why, like, if any countries are like not all of the workers on the means of production yet, means that they are not socialist. It's like they treat socialism as an end goal, as a checkbox, like a checklist, the to-do list, and until they check the last box, they are not, socialist. Meanwhile, our definition of socialism is very different. Our definition of socialism, not just Vietnam, but like China and also Laos and so Cuba too, is that socialism is a transitional period of moving a society from capitalism into, higher state of socialism and then communism. So it is like a transitional period. It's a path that we walk on. And the moment a country decided to sway away from capitalism and to move forward socialism and communism, that is what we call the socialist path already. So very different kind of thing. And also at the same time in Vietnam, of talking about the ownership of the means of production, we partially did it. For example, every single one in Vietnam that was born in rural area, and 70% of Vietnamese people are farmers, and 90% of ethnic minorities Vietnamese are farmers. So like a vast majority of our society is farmers. We all own our own means of production, and that is true. A lot of people, even Vietnamese, don't know about this. I don't know how, but I guess because they're born in the cities and they don't care much about our land reform, land law, or something like that. But it is true, and I have a piece of farmland, small one, does not make me rich. But this is the point to you that, yes, Vietnam is actually walking on that path. We did give farmers land for free the moment we were born in a rural area. That is like, yeah, farmers in Vietnam do own the means of production. And the concept of, corporation farm does not exist here. Companies, business enterprises, corporations cannot own any farmland. What they can do is they can lease the land from the local government to build their headquarters, their house, the building, so they can work on it. And about the farmland, they will have to work with the farmers in that local area and persuade the farmers to grow the raw material, and they will have to buy back the raw material from the farmers. That is how it works now. So corporation farms don't exist here. That is Vietnam, like a baby step ahead of you, talking about the land ownership, the farmland ownership, the means of production. So it is like, it depends a lot on the definition of socialism that we are talking about here, because to this day, they are not a single definition of socialism that all of us agree with. What I can do is like the definition that billions of people agree with, which is Vietnamese, Chinese, Laos, and Cuba, and North Korea. But there are still some small groups who have a different definition, so that's why they dismiss us. The next question is, what is the process of joining the Communist Party of Vietnam? And our members require or expected to do certain work after joining. Yes. Long story short, the process of joining the Communist Party of Vietnam is you have to apply for Marxism, Leninism class in your local area. Usually they will hold that class and you have to apply, pass some basic exam to go through that. And you need to get, the trust from the community too, because like you cannot just like newly move in and immediately start it, because like people will not trust you enough to do that. You need to live in a local area for a while, and then you know the people, you talk to people, and then if there is any Marxist-Leninist class in that local area, you join that, you learn to study that, and you for a few months or a year or something like that, or over a year, depends. You pass the final exam, you get a certificate, and then after that, you would be put in probation for like a year with you will have a tutor
sent to you by the local government, 1 or 2 tutors, depends. And that tutor will help you and advise you, guide you, and also observe you in that matter of 1 year probation time to see like how you contribute to the local area, how you work, and how you actually help the local party unit. And after that 1 year probation, you can join. You can have a ceremony to be officially approved to join. And after that, you expect to, closely work with the people, to listen to the people, bring the ideas of the people up and join all the meetings and the vote, something like that. And I cannot, just like, as a matter of fact, a lot of people say that I am a high-ranking member of the Communist Party of Vietnam, blah, blah, blah. That is why I have that piece of land. Like, no. Actually, I cannot be a member of the Communist Party of Vietnam yet because my partner is foreigner.
Yeah.
Because until you be the citizen, that's my
I thought you were
point.
saying until I divorce.
My God, you have a dark thought. You have so dark thought. Yet means that until you become the citizen.
That's an acceptable. You dug yourself out.
So yeah, I do not get the farm because I am some special person. No. It's just the land law in Vietnam. Okay, yeah, here, talking about the definition of socialism, I can give you Lenin's 4 criteria of a socialist democracy. It's what we call socialist democracy. Socialist democracy is an institution, a regime that built by the people for the people, and is truly a socialist kind of regime. We call it socialist democracy. And 4 criteria are this. First, equality of all citizens under the law. The second is political freedom for all citizens. The third is decisions made by majority of all citizens, and citizens decide by vote. The last one is, you didn't send it clearly. I say it again. The first one, equality of all citizens under the law. The second is political freedom for all citizens. Third one is decision made by majority of all citizens. The fourth one is citizens decide by vote, which is the essence of peaceful and pure democracy. That is just it. And Vietnam is slowly on this path. And I talk about this in my next video, the last part of the democratic centralism series. So hope you stay tuned.
I just shared a link to Luna's video in the chat if you want to watch that after the stream.
$5.
5 minutes. You're
supposed to say thank you 5.
Thank you 5. Forgot about that.
I'm trying to turn Luna into a theater kid.
Oh, back about the human nature argument. Not to mention that the human species only prevailed because we organize ourselves into groups. Individually, we die to any animal, basically. Ha ha ha. That is true.
I say this all the time. If you really believe in individualism, go into the woods butt naked and see how long you last.
Yeah, right.
You, like, especially these, the people who call themselves like the preppers and the homesteaders and that sort of thing.
Cottage core kind of
They
people.
go out and I watch these YouTube videos a lot. I kind of hate watch them. They go out and they'll like buy these houses and then they'll be like, oh, I'm living off the grid. And then they have like solar panels that were made in a factory and delivered to them through international logistics systems. And they'll have like gas generators and they use gasoline. It's like, you're not living off the grid. You have a very strong connection to your community. You just live in the woods. Your house is just in the woods. That doesn't mean that you're like completely self-sufficient. Like,
and here's the thing too. I want a little bit about the cottage core. Okay, it looks cool. It feels cool, right? Especially you have no touch whatsoever to actual farming, agriculture. This is my definition of cottage core. Cottage core is the fever dream of people who know nothing about farming. That is it. Like,
Right. Or the people who are like, oh, I'll just have a garden in my yard and that's how I'll eat. It's like
no, if you know a single thing, you have a single brain cell about farming, that's impossible. Because farming is all about collectivism. You cannot single-handedly with a small piece of land to grow every single vegetable they're going to eat your whole life. No, you need to work with the community, except you grow something that you can do.
and help each other
Help each other because
the harvest
your
and
labor
the-
is limited.
Yeah.
You don't know how hard it is to grow rice or potato. And also, you need water system. And you need to get it from somewhere else. The rainwater is not enough, obviously, because you have a dry season and rain season, sometimes flood and drought. It's totally a community kind of thing. You cannot just go to the wood, farm your own from a piece of land and think that's enough. Like, dude, no, you can't. By the way, you still need fucking medicine. The last 5 minutes. Dang it, the cortex core.
Set you off. But I mean,
I just want to say this too. This is going to be controversial perhaps, but I mean, solar punk rubs me the wrong way for the same reason. Because especially a lot of the solar punk imagery I've seen, first of all, it's like you don't see any workers. It's just like an empty land.
It's like magic.
And there might be like robots or whatever.
Oh.
But then also they do this like, it's a very common theme too, is like weather changing or like weather manipulation, where they'll have like a robot that like, it's like, no, like why don't we, instead of worshiping these like technocratic workerless fantasies, why don't we start celebrating indigenous farming practices and growing plants and vegetables and that sort of thing that are indigenous to the local area, and socialist farming practices and land reform? Like, why? I don't know. I don't like solar punk. It really bothers me. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people emotionally resonate with it, but
I'm
politically,
sorry. If you like solar punk, I'm so sorry, but I got to tell you this. Solar punk, it looks nice. The aesthetic is nice, alongside with like the TV or the Ghibli studio style of drawing, But the biggest problem is this. If you look at it through the surface, that is a very shallow surface level of it. Just look through the sheer level of the surface level of that, you see this all the issues of it. As I said, and I just add few more points. That just look at about the practical perspective. I'm sorry, but vines on cement and trees on cement is actually not good for the cement. It will rot very, very soon. And also at the same time, because of that, the bugs. Bad.
also, I don't remember
Snakes and mosquitoes and the bugs.
Somebody pointed out that in solar punk, because they tend to use the Studio Ghibli style, they'll often show like rusting equipment, and it's like that's not OSHA
good.
approved. That's very dangerous for workers when your equipment is all like rusty.
Imagine
and falling
a kid that accidentally step on those rotten metal
robots. It's like, I got tetanus from our solar punk robot.
Yeah, but to immediately bring them to medical attention because of the viruses and the bacteria there.
Don't worry,
Sorry.
Luna, there's a robotic ambulance that will take you to the robot hospital where no workers will help you. It'll all just be robots helping you.
It's like wishful thinking. It's not practical at all. Don't waste your time on it. All right?
all right. 1 minute warning.
Huh? 1 minute.
Rust is the enemy of the workers.
Gosh. And also, here's the thing: a lot of the solar punk, they like fantasize a lot about the weather machine. The machine are like, rain in this plot of land, but sun in that plot. They're like, no, that is bad. That is bad for the weather. We're talking about climate change right here.
Right.
And you're destroying the environment.
Do you know what the real solar punk? I will die on this hill. The true solar punk foundational work is Dune. Arrakis is real solar punk.
Yeah.
It's like this horrible world where there's like rich people watering their like tree just for luxury, and it's using like hundreds of gallons of water, and then everyone else is dying of thirst in the desert. That's what you see like off camera. You don't see off camera all the Fremen dying of thirst in the desert.
Solar punk has the same issues that utopian stuff does. It seems nice on the surface, but it's just waste of time in the end.
Yeah, that's a big problem. I mean, and that's why when we talk about this stuff, it makes a lot of people mad. They get because they're very emotionally invested in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sorry, we just have to critique what we're seeing.
Sorry to hurt your Fifi.
I think it could be like fixed with a few adjustments. I mean, for one thing, you have to celebrate workers. You have to celebrate workers in the art. If I saw more workers being celebrated, because I mean, this is a whole tangent, I guess. Maybe we don't need to go all the way down this road. But that's step one. And step two is stop with the weather manipulation. That should be banned from all solar punk. And well, here's the other thing. I don't like the name solar punk because it's not punk.
Is it punk?
What's it critiquing?
Yeah.
I mean, like cyberpunk.
What does it critique?
It's showing the like stark, horrible world of capitalism. Basically,
it's not punk and it's not a critique, and actually, it's like the glorification of capitalism.
Well, theoretically, it could be. Well, that's the other thing. Okay, this is actually. You just made a really important point about solar punk. It's like ideologically neutral. If you look at a picture of a solar punk landscape, that could be a fascist fantasy, it could be a capitalist fantasy, it could be a communist fantasy. It's pure aesthetics. And that, in my mind, that's very dangerous because it makes it very easy for people like fascists to co-opt that movement. And fascists do that. And fascists are all about hijacking leftist aesthetics. So, yeah, I mean, that's maybe I'm wrong, but most of the solar punk art that I've seen is like aesthetics only, and there's nothing in there that points to anything like a communist ideology.
It is absolutely not practical, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and it might be good to consult. Like if you're an aspiring solar punk artist, it would behoove you to consult with some people who know anything about farming.
Utopian and dystopian capitalism in art is a symptom of 90s year of reactionary propaganda. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Yep. The Italian fascists were very into futurism.
That's true. I do want to caveat that though, because if you go and you look up futurism, it's for some reason, I don't know if this is like by design or not. I suspect it might be by design. But if you just go look up like the Wikipedia article for futurism or read like the first 4 or 5 articles on futurism, at least that's what I had in my Google algorithm, it only talks about the fascist futurists, but there was like a very prominent socialist futurist movement too that gets like forgotten.
Yeah.
And then there are things like indigenous futurism and Afrofuturism, and those also are very cool movements. So like, I completely, yes, the fascists were very enamored with futurism, but that doesn't mean we should throw the baby with the bathwater, because there were some cool communist futurists as well. And they're like buried. They're very, very buried in like the Google world. So you have to like search for it to find it. So anyway, sorry.
I mean, those things are very attractive to your eyes because it's pure aesthetic. And it says something that we deeply want, which is, to have a harmony, way of style of living with harmony with each other, harmony with the future. But it is something that got ripped off away from you. I think that is pretty much insidious kind of way to sway you from doing actual organizing work in real life. It's a utopia. In a sense, it is a utopia, and I don't want you to, to invest too much time and effort into it, because it's never going to work, and it's not realistic. It's not practical at all.
Some might even say it's utopian. It's utopian.
It's utopian, yeah. It is utopian.
You just said it's Zootopian.
Oh, really? I said it's utopian? That's funny.
It just sounded like you said Zootopian. And I'm just thinking of like, I don't know, like a little bunny, a little communist bunny rabbit.
That's funny.
Somebody should remake Zootopia, but it's about like Engel's critique of utopianism.
All right, we are technically officially out of time.
Sing us out, Luna. And a 1, and a 2, and a...
Vùng lên hỡi các nô lệ ở thế gian, vùng lên hỡi ai cực khổ bần hàn, sục sôi nhiệt huyết trong tim đầy chứa rồi quyết phen này. You didn't help me. Quyết phen này sống chết mà thôi.
I knew that as an individual, you would be able to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Hated bootstrap.
Let us see your face, and I'll end the stream. But also the hammer signal. There you go. Big smile. Look at the camera.